of, hold on a minute, I can't talk and do two things at the same time here, of having the entire class tomorrow as a free day, I guess, only because my second hour will be gone. So I'll give you the assignment today and then we'll get started. All right, so let's get ready to start. We're looking at chapter 4, and this is our first beginnings of what this course will look like under the standards that State of Indiana and our dual credit. History classes in college are divided into History 101 and History 102. History 101 is colonial America to Reconstruction. That was our review time period. History 102 is Reconstruction to present day. For our standards, we need to get up to about 1980-ish. That's about where we'll cut off, okay? Hopefully. All right, so I always start with our standards and what you need to know for this chapter, and hold me to this, that I should be able, should have explained and taught to you the factors that lead to industrialization, how new inventions and innovations change American lives, and the impact of industrialization in the 1800s. So that's what this chapter is about. That's what you should know at the end of this chapter. So Reconstruction ends after the Civil War. And one of the things that's important to note about the Civil War is what has happened in the South. And again, because we had a review, we don't spend a lot of time on that. But the South has been destroyed. The Northern Army marched through the South, burned it to the ground. My hometown of Goldsboro, North Carolina, was a train depot. So all these trains from North Carolina went into Goldsboro, and it was one of the places where Robert E. Lee burned. I got a big old sign down the center of the street in Goldsboro that says Sherman's March, went right through my town, and he burned every single building in my town except for one plantation home because they used it as a Union hospital. So every building in my building, even though that town has been there since I think 1704, was burned. They had to rebuild the entire place. So who's responsible for rebuilding that? And that will be where we're at. So we have to rebuild the South. We also have to make sure that we take into account this spread west. So several factors lead to increased industrial growth, and that's one of them during the Civil War. A need for ammunition. So we need ammunition. The Northern Army needs ammunition, bullets, guns, etc. to fight. Medical supplies. We are now at a point in our history that we can keep people alive from their wounds and their injuries, and that means that we need medical supplies. We're not talking medication, but we're actually talking supplies like gruesome things like bone saws and bandages. And then uniforms. One of the ways that people are going to get fabulously wealthy during this time period is from supplying the Union Army. And when we think about war, I think we always think about things like guns and ammunitions, and in a modern time period, tanks and ships and airplanes. But one of the ways people get really wealthy is outfitting the actual person. So if I am fighting for the Union Army, I need a hat, I need a uniform, I need underwear, I need socks, I need a belt, I need a canteen, I need a backpack, which they called a haversack. I need a gun. Did I say boots yet? I need boots. I need all of those things. And the United States government doesn't make anything, right? They have no factories of their own. What the United States government also does not do is they aren't bargain shoppers. They're not me looking for a white shirt. One of the few times my husband went with me, I was looking for a white shirt. And every place we went, he's like, there's a white shirt. I'm like, I'm not buying the first white shirt I see. I got to go to a couple of places, see if I find one I like better. Who buys the first white shirt? He's like, it's a white shirt. That's the first one. So the United States government is not a bargain shopper. They don't shop around. They ask for contracts. They get a contract. You sign it. That's it. People make a lot of money supplying the government. And so we're going to get this gigantic explosion of industrial growth. the people that we're going to study in this time period, Rockefeller, Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, Vanderbilt, will be the richest people in the history of America. Even when we look at 21st century and we add Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and all those rich people, they're still richer than them. There's no one that even comes close to them. At the height of J.P. Morgan's career, he had more money than the federal government, more money. And these people are fabulously wealthy. Fabulously wealthy. Mr. Vanderbilt, anyone ever hear of Vanderbilt University? When you have enough money that you can make a university, you have a lot of money. Carnegie Hall, anybody ever hear of Carnegie Hall? That's Andrew Carnegie. He builds that with his own money. So these people are going to get really, really wealthy. Factories included new tools, new methods that will create this ability to mass produce these goods that are necessary for war. The other part that helps us is our natural resources. The United States is one country that has an incredible amount of natural resources. Probably the only place, the only continent that has more would be Africa. And that's because Africa is a giant country. We have lots and lots and lots of coal. We have lots and lots and lots of timber. Our rivers make it easier to use to get goods and services. And also, when we think about river, we need to think about hydro energy, which even though that sounds like a 21st century thing, we were using that all the way into the 16th century. And then we're going to find oil in Pennsylvania. And I know we don't typically think of oil in Pennsylvania. We usually think like Oklahoma and Texas, but our first oil wells will be in Pennsylvania. We don't have cars yet, so don't think about oil fueling cars, but we do have the beginnings of combustible engines that will help. And then if you recall in our movie, that one point when the kids get the oranges, that was the anniversary of the railroads connecting, and that you could hop on a railroad in Boston and take a railroad all the way out to San Francisco. So we're connected from sea to shining sea. And the government, lastly, is going to encourage immigration. So at this point in our course of U.S. history, this is when I encourage you to find out about your family history, where you're from, what your grandparents know about relatives. I always caution, high rate of caution, about all of you that your families are going to tell you that you're descendant of a Native American Cherokee princess. If you have that in your background, because my father told me that my whole life, because his side of the family is very, very dark complected. It's because they were Greek, and would tell me all the time that his great grandmother was a Cherokee princess. I told everybody that. And when I had my DNA done, guess how much Native American blood I have? Zero, zip, nada, not even 1 percentage point of Native American. Mostly it's because, if you recall from watching our beginning of our colonial time period, the English wanted to annihilate them. And then when we get to the 1880s in this part of our course, when we move out west, we kill them again. We also have lots of laws against marrying people of different ethnicities, so it doesn't happen very often. But I would highly encourage you to ask your parents. Make sure you ask both sides. Usually everyone asks the last name that they are, but think about your mother's maiden name and your great-grandmother's maiden name. I would bet that a lot of you have been here for a really long period of time and are in Indiana since statehood, 1816, but I would think that some of you probably are from other areas. I think most of you will find a lot of Germanic, Luking, where's my other? Go forth. Do you know what that is? Okay. That one, every now and then I have names that like puzzle me, like go forth, like Edmondson. That's definitely some kind of English, Scottish kind of thing. All the other, most of your other names, Webb, all those names are very English, some Germanic, because this is a large area for, but go forth. That one puzzles me. I always have a couple that are really puzzling to me about where they're from. And if any of your family knows, I would be interested to hear. But here's a great time to ask, because we have lots and lots. Anybody Italian? Do we have any Italians, Polish, Russian, any of those people? Those are typically the immigrants that come in the 1880s. I would guess, with all the last names that we have in this room, that most of your families came in the early 1700s, that beginning of our first open of our colonies. And what needs to happen for all of these businesses to function is they need lots of workers. Lots of workers, way more workers than we have. So these business owners advertise in places like Italy, in Great Britain, in Germany. Hey, come over. In Russia, come over and work in the United States. And as in the 1880s, as in the 21st century, the United States is a land of opportunity. And these factory workers have an opportunity to experience probably the highest, greatest living that they would have had ever in their own country. So a lot of immigrants are coming to the United States because they're pushed out of their homeland. We have to think about what would make someone leave their home, a place where they have connections, where they have family, where they have a history, where they have a culture, to move to a place where they don't know the language and they don't know anyone. And these are called push factors. They're being pushed out of their country. A lot of it are the first two: political upheaval, meaning you are being persecuted for your political beliefs, or you're being persecuted for your religious beliefs. And that's going to happen a lot in Russia to Jews, in any of our Eastern Orthodox places, and also Poland will have a lot of Polish Jews that will try to leave. The third one is economic factors that are pushing me out. If I'm a farmer and I have crop failure after crop failure after crop failure, eventually I can no longer farm because I don't have any income to buy seed for the next year. And so that becomes a problem. So these reasons are called push-pull factors of immigration. And that's what we'll be looking at for the next 3 or 4 chapters as we move through this time period. And this is a picture of immigrants on in line and Ellis Island, waiting to go through Ellis Island and become part of the new immigration in the United States. So our next look is at big business. This is what this chapter is about. This chapter is about big business. And our next few chapters will be about trying to make a balance between a capitalist business owner, the United States government, and the people that work there. That's what this whole next few chapters are going to be about, and how we as a country figure this out. For the most part of our course, the people that run the businesses are going to be sitting in the driver's seat, and we can understand that why. Capitalism is what runs America. Capitalism is our economy, and capitalism means that people can enter into the economic system with their own money and make profits that are their own. And this is, again, the idea of entrepreneurs. An entrepreneur invests money in products in order to make profits. We have a free and open economy. We have it in the 21st century. We had it in 1880, meaning if I open a business and I have the money, I can make that all those profits become my own. What will become the issue is, what part of that profit should the worker have a portion of? The entrepreneur is going to say, I'll give you some, but not much, because I have the biggest risk. I have to buy a building. I have to pay a light bill, a water bill. I have to pay salaries to people working on my product before I even sell anything. So if I open a store, if I open a pizza store in Sullivan County, which that's just what Sullivan needs, another pizza store, before I even make the first pizza, I have to buy a place, I have to put utilities, I have to buy dough, pizza sauce, I have to buy all the ovens and tools and pay someone to make pizza before I even sell a single pizza. That's the risk that an entrepreneur takes. And that's why they have the largest reward. That's why I make the most money. It's also this idea, again, that the United States holds this idea that rags to riches, that anybody can come to America and become wealthy. That's all of our goals. That's what, even in the 21st century, everyone is trying to do, is to become wealthy and by some new invention. The 21st century has opened up entrepreneurs and things I still do not understand. People try to explain to me how you make money on YouTube. I don't know how. I don't know how that little boy with his mom and dad opening up Easter eggs has made billions of dollars and he has his own toy line in Walmart. I don't understand that. I don't understand how Instagram influencers get stuff. I don't get it. But here's the important part. In the 21st century, we have a new group of entrepreneurs using tools to make money that none people my generation can't even imagine. Can't even imagine having a store without walls. My husband still continues to berate my two children who are grown adults with their own houses. Both of them have their own houses. They pay their own mortgage. But the fact that when they get their paychecks, they take a picture of it and put it in the bank that way sends him over the moon. People my generation can't fathom that you don't have a bank that you go inside of. It just makes no sense to us. That's what America means, and that's what this big business means to America. Entrepreneur-fueled industrialization. Here's why these people are important. Jobs. Businesses started by entrepreneurs create thousands of jobs. And that's why America protects business. Does anyone in here have a family-owned business that just your family owns? What type? It's what? Okay, well, what's yours, Carter? A what? A farm. Let me pick another one because I know you employ people, but it's a different kind of business than farming. I'm thinking something with walls that you have to pay rent. I get it, but because your dad still farmed during COVID, right? Like that's not. Then this is where my analogy is. One of the first things that the federal government did during this COVID was recognize that not only are workers not getting paid, so that stimulus check that went to workers, did any of you guys, no, you guys aren't old enough to get it. Businesses also need that. So let's go back to our pizza business. The state of Indiana said I had to close my pizza business. As an entrepreneur, I still have to pay my bills. I still have to pay a light bill. I still have to pay a rent bill. And so the government helps that happen and help that happen by offering stimulus money and or loans. The federal government needs people to work to pay taxes. The federal government needs people to start businesses. And if they don't do that, then the federal government doesn't get taxes. That's the bottom line. So the government will benefit, or the government will have this laissez-faire policy. I do not define what laissez-faire means. This is where you're going to have to write this yourself. Laissez-faire means hands off. It means hands off. Now, Carter, we'll talk about your farmer in your farming industry, because if your dad was standing in here right now and he hears this lecture that says the government allow businesses to work under minimal government regulation, he will probably say, your teacher does not know what she's talking about and she needs to lose her job. But we're talking about the 1880s. And in the 1880s, the government had hands off. There was no regulation. I did not have to provide a safe working place. How many of you actually work at a pizza place? Joe's, are you allowed to use a pizza cutter? No, you're not allowed to use a pizza cutter. They should not be letting you use a pizza cutter. Are you allowed to use a cheese grater? You should not be allowed to use a cheese grater either. Why? Because child labor laws. If you are, stop doing it because it's against the law. You're not allowed to use a pizza slice. Can you use a pizza cutter at your house? Sure. Can you drive a vehicle that could kill somebody? Sure, but you can't use a pizza slicer. Why? Or a pizza cutter? Because of child labor laws. We have laws created. Don't tell me you do. We have laws created after the fact to protect children from those unsafe business practices. So that is one of the things that the federal government has created to keep people safe in their employment. So at the beginning, we have no rules and regulations. And I am sure that Mr. Trowbridge files lots of paperwork, has to spend money to make sure that he is in compliant with some of our rules and regulations that are on our farmers, especially with what they put in the water because of underground watershed. That's now. But back in the day, nothing that stopped me from operating my business in any way. So government policies encouraged and worked with to help businesses grow. That's the idea. This whole chapter is about the explosion of business. So how does the government do that? One of the ways they're going to do that is give away land. Yes.
Is policies spelled right?
What? Probably.
Policies.
Is what spelled wrong?
Policies.
Yep.
Spelled
It
right.
looks like polices. Yeah. Which spell check won't check because polices is spelled right, even though I don't think that's a word. I am not a great speller.
I'm not either. I was like,
But I'm glad that you noticed that.
something doesn't.
Government policies, which that would change the whole framework of that government polices, encouraged and worked with businesses to help business grow. So one of the things they're going to do is give away land. Thousands, not little bits of land, but thousands and thousands of acres to railroad so they could build the railroads. It doesn't take thousands and thousands of acres to build a railroad, right? You just need a little bit on either side. So then what do those railroad owners do, like Vanderbilt and Stanford? Mr. Stanford, does he have a university as well? Yes, he does. They take all that land and then they sell it. So the federal government gave them thousands of acres to build a railroad. When they built their railroad on maybe hundreds of acres, they had all that land left over to sell. And so they sold that, again, becoming fabulously wealthy. All right, so we're going to stop there. Your assignment, and I don't know if it's going to pop up. So if you look in Canvas, again, those of you that have had me for world history, you know what these things are. We've done them before, but the Bell questions are a series of questions that you need to copy and paste onto a Google Doc. I would highly encourage you, and it would make me really happy if you just use one document for all of that and put all of those questions on that one document, because then if you forget to turn like week 3 in and you turn in week 4, I can go back and grade week 3 without any difficulty. So please make sure you do that. Please label them week 1, week 2. We are week 7. I actually think I'm off a week because it really should be week 8, right? It will ask you on Mondays to read, and you're looking at Canvas on your phone, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't need to see it. I trust you 100%. Monday says read on the top of your textbook. So I will show you again. There's 5 of the questions. I will show you from the homepage where to find the textbook. I always have a link to our module. So our current module is the Triumph, and that is chapter 4. And in that module, at the very top is the textbook. Those of you that are my virtual students, the notes are all listed here. So if at any point you go virtual, there's that. And then our Bell questions are up next. Mine looks different from yours because it has everything in it. And then our assignments. So our assignment for really tomorrow, but you can start it today, is our tycoon heads, that we'll start looking at our different tycoons. And you are going to have to look these guys up a bit to see who they are. And our tycoons are Thomas Edison. These should be names that you all have at least heard before. Rockefeller, anyone that's ever been to New York City to 30 Rockefeller, that's their building. And our next one is Carnegie, and then our last one is Vanderbilt. And those are the people that we'll be looking at in this chapter. You have the entire class period tomorrow to work on these. In each one, I ask you who they are, when they did their inventing, what did he contribute, the inventions, how did the contributions change, lasting legacy, and then 2 interesting facts. Please do not tell me their interesting facts are things like they had a wife and a son or something interesting. Try to do it with what pertains to U.S. history. Interesting. Not just the first fact that pops up in Wikipedia, please. Okay? All right. Yes, ma'am.
So, is the book on Canvas or something?
Is the book on Canvas?
Yeah, like it says.
Yes. Look right here. If you go back home, are you on Canvas now?
Yeah.
If you go back home and then you look under where I have that big temporary virtual students in the green, it says link to current module. If you click there, it says textbook chapter, U.S. History 4. You see it?
Yeah.
Okay. You're welcome. Anyone else have any questions?